Bills Live. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker. Pleased to be joined now by Bills General Manager Brandon Beane, whose appearance on the show is presented by Northtown Automotive Companies, the official automotive dealership of the Buffalo Bills. Whatever you're looking for, you'll find it at Northtown. All right, Brandon, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here roster-wise. Final cuts coming up on Tuesday. Last chance to make a good impression for a lot of guys on this roster on Saturday against the Panthers. Do you feel like you've got more, I don't know if question marks is the right word here, Brandon, but you had a pretty established roster last year, more turnover in this past offseason than most. Does that mean you have more answers to find in getting to your 53 this time around, maybe in comparison to the past couple of years?
I would say there was definitely through this time, and you're right, we're nearing the very end. And, you know, a month ago when we got to St. John Fisher, you're going, all right, these guys are battling. These four guys are battling for these two spots. These, you know,
yep.
Unless someone comes out of the dark, this is how you naturally do that going in. And so I do think there was probably, starting this camp than a year ago, more battles. Doesn't mean you're not going to like your final 53 better, but more things to be settled because you either draft picks, free agents, new players, guys who have not established themselves as a starter, just with some of the turnover, you know, as we've talked about all offseason. But we think some of these things have shaped themselves out as long as, you know, health remains where it's at. And, you know, and then there's a few guys that have, you know, the safety and linebacker position. We've had some injuries, and some of those are going to have to be projections if you're going to keep a guy who hasn't been able to get on the field and stay. So we've been working through that, and but not every position. You know, I can't sit here and say I know what the 53 is. That's not accurate. There's still some things to be settled, separate of injury. And then yes, I'll huddle up with our medical people after this game. We'll run through where everyone's at and make sure that we have the right team ready for Arizona week 1.
That's been the real problem for this. One of the real problems for this training camp is evaluation of guys who you thought were probably going to make the 53, and you haven't been able to see them. Like Cole Bishop, Mike Edwards, to name a couple.
Yep.
And then the quarterback spot, Mitch Trubisky. And because of the injuries, then your starters become even more valuable and sacred not to play in the preseason. And so they can't get well-oiled and ready to play either. So it's a different training camp. It has been a really different training camp for you guys in the personnel side.
Yeah, I would say you're right. Some things are determined. Yeah, a guy like Cole Bishop, you would love to see a young guy getting those reps. We invested a high pick, and we think he's going to be great. You know, he's going to be on the roster and all that. But, yeah, you would love for him to have gotten those reps and see if he could have won, you know, a job, you know, next to, you know, right. T-Rap or whatever. But we're still ironing that out, who will start next to T-Rap. Sure. That is one of the question marks, you know, going into week 1. Like some others, you know, Nick Morrow's a guy that's been a versatile backup at linebacker, had the core muscle surgery in the offseason, and then again still had, you know, some effects working his way back. He's been out as well, and you know Trubisky. The week before Shane Buechele goes out, who I thought Shane was having a good camp. The game did not go as well as Shane, you know, would have liked. When that game ended, I was like, I can't wait for this kid to get back out there next week and redeem himself. And unfortunately, the injury caused him to be on IR, and then the next, you know, last week in Pittsburgh, the knee for Mitch. So yeah, we still got to get all that finalized and see will Mitch be available week 1 or not. You know, we still need to find out about that.
Yeah, and that's part of the advanced plan. I mean, guys in the personnel department, you guys are advanced planners by trade. Like, you've got to plan for those potential contingencies if they come up. And, you know, I know Coach is still optimistic and doesn't want to rule players like Valdez-Scantling or Quentin Morris or Mitch Trubisky out for week 1 just yet, because there is time. There's 2 weeks, and who knows. But you guys got to plan for the worst case scenario as personnel people. So how does that process work with your people in that department over this next, 6 to 10 days, where you may need to have answers at the ready in case one of those injuries does go the wrong way and it's not week 1 availability or maybe even week 2 availability, you've got to have answers for that.
No doubt. And you got to look at, we're obviously, what is on our roster and who do we think we can get to practice squad that could help? Do we need to keep someone that maybe we wouldn't have if we don't think one of these guys can play? Do we need to IR someone? All those questions come up. And then you're right, Tuesday comes and what else is out there? Let's compare that to what we currently have, as we do every year. You don't just assume when you make that final 53 that it's 100%. You're staying with it.
Yeah.
You got to assume that someone could come out there, veteran or on the waiver wire. Now, again, if it's a really good player on the waiver wire where we're at, the odds of us getting them is not very high. If it's a veteran, though, those guys can choose wherever. So we will definitely monitor all that and see where we can fill in some of these depth spots. And ready for everything. We've had a lot of conversations going through if the roster looked like this, what would be our priority here for practice squad? Do we feel like we need an upgrade? So we kind of have gone through position by position with my pro staff of those guys and kind of laid that out going into this game. Again, what happens injury-wise.
And do they kind of also handicap the other rosters around the league? Like, hey, it's looking like this guy's not going to make the roster here.
Yep.
This guy might not make the roster there. Let's keep a close eye on those because those are players we'd be interested in.
Yeah, we definitely have guys that we say, hey, this is a claimable player it's going to be down to this guy or this guy. In our system, if he's released, he's a claimable. The next one is he would be a practice squad priority. If he's released and maybe they don't want him or we can talk to the agent after release and have him on our practice squad, he would be an upgrade over anyone we would put on it. So, and if we lose a guy, he gets claimed. We've had guys claimed every year that we hope to get to practice squad. If we lose this guy, this would be our pecking order of replacements on practice squad, or this would be our next guy. Maybe there's a guy on our roster that we're going to choose someone else over, but we like him close. And so if the guy above him gets claimed, we would still be content, with this player on our
I'm fascinated.
Right. Yeah. Walk us through like the possibilities now, what you're able to do with a guy like Matt Milano specifically, who is going to be a minute for him to get back.
Yeah.
But you're not letting him go anywhere.
No.
What are you able to do with his IR, like hold him, put him on the initial 53, then put him on IR, that kind of stuff, and what's that mean for exposing some guy to waivers who would have been on the 53 had Milano been healthy?
Yeah, you know what? They've changed the rule this year, so it got passed at the owners' meeting, but in the past, we had to do kind of the roster shuffling. We've done it with Reed Ferguson. We've done it with some different guys, but for a day, they finally came to their senses and passed a rule where we can put 2 guys on IR at the 53 cut and designate them that they are guys that could potentially come back later in the season. And so at this point, that's the most likely plan for Matt. And, we have no idea his timeline truly yet. He just had it fixed. And so we'll wait that out a little bit. And if he can come back, great. Obviously you would always want a Matt, but that's down the line. We're going to focus on week 1 and who can help us there.
As far as Saturday afternoon goes against the Panthers, Brandon, obviously you're going to get a nice long look at second teamers, third teamers, and there's an opportunity there for them to either cement a practice squad spot, as you mentioned, or maybe even challenge for a roster spot. I know we've seen video of you with our embedded series of hoping somebody runs a slow 40 time at the combine. Are you kind of hoping that some of your guys don't put too good a tape out there if you have thoughts of practice squad for them for fear of getting claimed like you've had just about every season?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. You don't, because you get in the game, it's wild. Like even last week, it's 9-3, 6-3, and it was 6-3, and I'm like, man, let's score a touchdown. You still like to win the game.
Right,
it's just that feeling. And when it was a field goal, it's like, all right, a touchdown, and we lose this game 10-9. You don't want, or potentially lose it. And so right now, let's protect all our players. Let's don't play the game. Let me get those guys. But during the game, it's out of sight, out of mind. Competitive juices. I'm rooting, and if a guy that we're trying to get makes a big play, I'm gonna be excited. Now, Sunday I may say, dang, like I wish he hadn't done that. Now,
Right.
now if we expose him,
We're in trouble.
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah,
50-50.
he'll be in Carolina.
Yeah,
Right.
50-50, he's gone or something like that. But it is what it is. You root for these guys, and listen, if a guy can make another 53, you know, I'm also rooting for the player and the individual, especially someone who's fought hard
Yeah.
for that opportunity.
So give me an idea, if there is one. Is this keeping track of all the other practice squad or all the other rosters and the cut downs? And do you send people out to certain games, other preseason games, to watch them, or do you just do it completely 100% on film? Because everybody rewatches the film anyway.
Yeah.
But do you have guys on site as well?
We do.
And what do you get out of having a guy on site rather than just watching the film?
Yeah, it's not as good as when I go to a college game. A college game, I can go down there on the field. I can body type these guys. I can see them up close, like we're on the practice field. They're not allowed that access. It's up there. It's just something about the live feeling, understanding the whole holistic. You know, the film cuts in, cuts out, so you kind of get a feel for how they made the play in the moment, the magnitude of the game. Maybe you saw the injury, maybe it was away from the film. You know, whatever it is, this guy, or you're watching him care for him. Like, I don't know if this guy's coming back.
Yeah.
So there's definitely something about being there and seeing eyes. But yes, even when they go to those games, they're going to come back here, break that film down. And yeah, our pro guys are all, I think I've told you guys this before, they're all have to be the GM of those rosters.
Right.
And so not that they're going to make every one of their teams, it's just not feasible to do that, but they try to get some looks in the preseason, especially if it's a team that we may be playing, just to get a look on some players, just to help them as they're going to prepare our coaches for the advanced scouting that week.
Yeah. And then you know that the ultimate goal is to get the best 53 on your roster, but position needs come into play at times in terms of numbers. I'm looking at your defensive end position. I'm like, how do they not go heavy there with all the talent you've got at defensive end? But to do that, you've got to rob from some other position. Maybe just walk us through those kinds of conversations that you guys have when you've got talent that you really don't want to let go of, and you know you can't clear through waivers and stick on the practice squad. How do you wrestle with those?
Yeah, it's hard because you do. When you line it up, you want to do it like playground style, where I just want to take the best player every time. Mm-hmm. But there are position minimums. You got to go in, to a game. You can't. And so how do you, is there an asset at a position, we'll use your analogy here, defensive end. Is there an asset that we can use there to either get a pick to use for or player for player or whatever to help us where maybe we're hurting with some depth, some of these injuries we've talked about earlier. So you're looking at all that. You are truly trying to pick the best 53, and we've done that here before. I know one year we kept like 11 D linemen, I think, at the 53. That's a little excessive, but we want to be strong up front, so we decided that was an area of if we're gonna be heavy, you're robbing from somewhere else. So it's very important there. Okay, if we strike injury where we went a little thin, what do we have on the practice squad?
Yeah.
We got to really make sure
Insulate yourself.
who we
almost.
can get through, or do we need to get someone else? So it's what's our short list options, either on our practice squad or on another practice squad.
Right. It's complicated, right? I mean, and plus there's so many uncertainties even with this game tomorrow. So you got this game coming up tomorrow. You're going to watch your guys closely, and not for nothing, it used to be.
Here we go. Back in my day.
Back in my day, you send a guy out there and you say, you need to hurt your back.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So
You went there.
Yeah. So, I mean, you need, and I know you guys don't do that because it's kind of against the philosophy, but you got to watch your own roster, particularly this one, with the play time and the guys that are injured, because as it always happens, injuries always happen at the same position all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. You got three safeties down. Your top three safeties maybe. Mm-hmm. Cole Bishop, Mike Edwards, and DeMar. Mm-hmm. Now, Rapp's been good. He's been available. But it's a real issue that you got to watch in this game. And what kind of conversations you have with Sean about how to handle that?
Yeah, I mean, we ultimately, part of, we are resting starters, for the most part this week, just to give some of the guys that haven't played as much and basically you're kind of altering your practice schedule for those guys, trying to make it practice a little more physical for them instead of the game, to keep them calloused up and give them that one-on-one competition. So that's where you try and tweak it if they're not going to play tomorrow, which they're not. And yeah, you're right. You don't want to stack up a bunch of casualties, because every dime you're paying for putting guys on IR or injury settlements, that comes off your cap. So you do the best you can. You got to play the game. You hope guys don't get injured. Sometimes they do. But I will say, to your point, I think that happened more in your day when practice squads were 5 to 8.
Right.
There's 16 practice squad spots. So if most players on this roster should feel that, hey, I can be one of those 16, because now veterans can be on there.
Yeah.
And those were the ones, in our roles, you're always worried about adding a cagey veteran late that you can't be on practice squad. He's counting numbers, but any of our vets could join the practice squad.
So there's been some off-season talk about the 18-game schedule and what they're going to do with the preseason. To you, what are your thoughts about adjusting the preseason? You got 3 games now. It used to be, oh my gosh, decades ago it was 6. Then this was 4 for a long, long time. Yeah. Now it's down to 3 with the 17-game schedule. It seems an inevitability. The 18-game schedule is going to come, be 2 preseason games. What are your thoughts about it? How would you tweak the preseason? Are they headed in the right direction?
Well, if they're going to do 18 games, and we'll see where that goes. I think you're going to have to up the rosters. Maybe there's a double bye. You got to help.
Right.
You got to help these guys get.
Yeah, give me that. What's the roster for that? I mean, if you were doing it and there was going to be another game.
Yeah.
And say you start 2 weeks before Labor Day, the entire league takes a bye on Labor Day weekend, and then you have the 16-game schedule with a bye sprinkled in there. 17
That's
weeks.
the Tasker plan, by the way.
That's my plan. It's probably going to happen, I'm pretty sure. So, but how would you handle, what's your perfect number for that, to get through that?
Yeah, I don't know what the perfect number is, but, right now we can take 48. It used to be 46 to game day. I would definitely say you're going to have to up your game day numbers. And I think the practice squad numbers are good, but maybe you could up it to 55 to 57 somewhere. Add
on game day?
No, I'm saying your
active roster.
Active roster.
And then, to me, get your game day roster from 48 at least to 50. You know what I mean? Something like that. I think that would help you, because that protects some of your frontline guys from having to play teams. Because,
right.
We still, Micah and Jordan, those guys, they still had to go out and play a phase here or there. You may be able to protect
punt return, kick return, something like that. They had to be out there. Yeah.
You may be able to keep just a designated returner and not have to throw one of those
keep
guys
4
out
specialists
there
instead of the 3. Yeah.
So I think there's different ways you can do it, but I would be a proponent for upping it now, to be honest with you. Just you're trying to make your product the best.
Yeah.
And I'm more talking about the game day than the 53. I'm just saying,
give them 50 on game day.
Give them 50, and just gives you more. It's a better product. It's a hard game. It's a physical game. We're already at 17. Like, help us get the best product for January when it matters the most.
Brandon, thanks for the time as always. We appreciate it. Good luck with that decision making you've got over the weekend and into early next week.
I'm going to try and play some golf this weekend. You're probably not going to be free, right?
I'm out this week, but
Okay.
I look forward to our next one.
Clubs
Suit yourself.
Clubs have been shuttered for sure.